Welcome to our weekly Forex forecast, and today we are looking or preparing for the week of November 11th to the 15th, 2019. Just a quick disclaimer here before we get started. This is for educational purposes only. Trading is a risky business, so please be careful with your money. As usual, we'll start off by taking a look at our calendar here. All right, so before we dive into the news events coming up last week, in terms of non-news, non-Forex news events, there has been some back and forth going on between US and China in regards to the first phase trade deal here. There were comments that came out of China saying that both US and China were going to roll back the tariffs, but there was some internal strife in the US in regards to rolling those tariffs back. So President Trump came out, I believe it was on Friday, he came out and said that he had not agreed to rolling back the tariffs. And as a result, we saw a drop in the markets. So right now, market is still overall, equity markets are still optimistic in regards to reaching a deal. So as we hear more comments in regards to the US and China trade deal, expect to see volatility in the market from that. So that's something just in the background that we have to keep in mind, and just keep an eye on the news or so that we can see those comments coming out. Starting off here today, we do have a Bank of Japan data here. So if you're trading Japanese yen, this will have an impact on that. Coming up here on Monday, we have GDP quarterly numbers here for UK, and if the numbers are below expectations, that will be negative. And another thing to keep in mind, Bank of England, there were actually 2 members who voted to cut rates. So it's kind of similar to Bank of Canada, where they said that they had discussed cutting interest rates. Bank of England, essentially 2 people voted to cut rates. So it looks like both of these central banks are changing, or at least they are in the very initial stages of potentially changing their stance on the monetary policy. And as a result, we have seen that Canadian dollar has not done too well, and as well as the British pound dropped as a result of those comments. So if the data comes out negative as well or below expectations, that creates more market expectations for Bank of England to cut rates, and this is why it could have a more of a negative impact than normal. So just keep that in mind. We also have this this weekend here. It's a long weekend for both US and Canada, as well as in France, it's a bank holiday. So on Monday, especially during the New York session, expect low liquidity, as a lot of traders will be away from their desks. Now we have New Zealand inflation expectations for New Zealand here. So it was at 1.86. If it's below that, we could see a dip in New Zealand dollar here as well. On Tuesday here, official cash rates and monetary policy statement for New Zealand. So central bank is expected to cut rates here. And if they do cut rates, so it is expected, so that some of that will be priced in already. But if their commentary is also dovish and they talk about future interest rate cuts, all of that will be negative for New Zealand dollar. However, if they do what Fed tends to do sometimes, is they will cut the rate, but then say, well, we are not going to cut the rate for foreseeable future, something to that effect, that would be positive for New Zealand dollar. So just keep that in mind. Anytime the central banks cut rates, it's bad for the currency. So currency tends to drop. However, if they set the future direction as this is a one and done deal, anything like that, that's taken as a positive sign. So just keep that in mind as you are trading the New Zealand dollar here. And on Wednesday here, more data from UK. We have CPI numbers, which are the inflation numbers. And so inflation numbers generally have been good for UK, but if we see a trend, so right now it's expected to come in below the previous number. Now, if this drops here, again, that gives another reason for Bank of England to look at changing their monetary policy or easing their monetary policy. CPI or inflation numbers are one of the main key numbers that central banks pay attention to. So anytime CPI numbers come in below expectations, that is negative for the currency. Same thing here, we have monthly inflation data out of US as well. And then we have Fed Chair Powell testifying. So this one is very important here. We could get comments that could create a change in the price. So make sure if you are trading the US dollar to pay attention to Powell's testimony here. And then we have Australian dollar data, employment numbers here. Oops, they are supposed to come in. Employment, where do we go? Wednesday here. Employment data here, it's expected to be better than a previous number. So any changes in that are likely to have an impact on Australian dollar. Australian dollar has been relatively strong over the last little bit. So if we see a drop here, that would be negative for Australian dollar here. And then we have data out of China. Again, these numbers will have an impact on New Zealand dollar and Australian dollar, so keep an eye on those when this Chinese data comes out. And then we have retail sales data for British pound for the month, and also preliminary GDP numbers for Eurozone. So these numbers, again, it is important, and when we see a drop, it will be negative for the currency. And then on Thursday here as well, in the New York session, we have a lot of FOMC members speaking here, and we also have second day of Powell's testimony. So this is the day that we could see volatility in the US dollar based on the comments that come out of these speeches. We also have Bank of Canada, Paula speaking. Again, depends on the comments that come out of this speech. We could see an impact on Canadian dollar as a result of that. And then to close the week off, we do have CPI numbers here out of the Eurozone, as well as the trade balance numbers. Again, any numbers below the expectations right now will have a negative impact on the currency because the focus is so much on central banks easing monetary policy here. And then we have retail sales numbers out of the US. A lot of US dollar data here on Friday. So keep an eye on US dollar as we are likely to see an impact as a result of this. All right, so that's it in terms of the news. So let's go to our charts now. We'll start off with our euro dollar as usual. Okay, so in terms of the euro dollar here, we see that price has been trading in this range for quite some time. For few months now, it's been back and forth in this range here. So there was a smaller range being developed here for the last 3 weeks that price had been trading in, and as we can see, it did not make it through the resistance. So now we have a bearish engulfing candle here. So bias here is to the downside, and looking for price to drop here. And do watch out for pullback though. We could get a pullback into 1.1070 level before the price continues further. So in this case, bias is to the downside. First target is 1.0920, and then below that we're looking at 1.0880. So bearish bias here for euro dollar. Pound dollar here, this one as well, it wasn't able to make it through through this resistance, and for the last few weeks, as we can see here, price has been slowly making its way down. We have been getting these lower highs, and now we have again a bearish engulfing candle here. So bias is bearish. We have had a big move to the upside here with all that optimism in British pound. So now that there are elections in December, we do still need to keep an eye on the Brexit developments, or in this case, elections. So as we get closer to the elections, expect more volatility from the British pound as well. But for now, right, for this coming week here, bias is to the downside. I'm looking for a pullback potentially into 1.2820 and then a drop here. So bias is bearish for pound dollar. And in terms of our targets here, first target is 1.2650. And then below that, we are looking at 1.2520. So bias is bearish for pound. Aussie dollar here, this one as well, it went into the resistance, wasn't able to quite break through it. And now we have a drop. So this one is not as bearish as we saw for British pound or the euro. So bias is still to the downside because there is rejection, but I would be careful with Aussie here. Right now, what I'm looking for is a pullback into 0.6880. So back into this support resistance area, and then a drop from there. So the first target here is 0.6820, and then looking at 0.6750. So bearish bias here for Aussie dollar as well. New Zealand dollar, this one, as we saw, has had a bigger move to the downside. Again, price went into our resistance level here. We have a double top and then a drop here. So overall, bias is bearish. And this one has also been trading in this range. So this is the inside range, and then we have the lower part of this range at the bottom pin there. So overall here, bias is bearish. And in this case, I would look for a potential pullback into 0.6360 and then a further drop from there. So bearish bias here. First target is 0.6250 and then aiming for the bottom here at 0.6200. So bearish bias here for New Zealand dollar as well. Dollar CAD here, this one has gone up as we talked about since Bank of Canada. Canadian dollar has been weak, so we do have a bullish candle close. This one I would be careful with, just because we are into resistance, prices into resistance, and as we saw with all these other pairs, if the price does not go through the resistance, it can come back down. So be mindful of that, but bias is bullish, and the next target is the top of this range. So if we were to remove this one here, we see that price, this is the range that price has been trading in for some time now, since summer here, and now we are in the middle of this range. So looking for price to go towards the top of the range. Just be mindful of the internal resistance here. So this is where price has reacted several times. It's struggled with this level, so it could do that again. So bias is bullish. 1.3350 is the target here for our dollar CAD. A question here is, do I just use the last candle closing to determine my bias? Bias, yes, I do determine my bias based on the last candle close here. I start with the weekly, then I go to the daily. But in terms of taking trades, I do look at more validation than just the candle close. But I do pay attention to candle closes to determine the bias. Okay, euro pound here. This one has been trading in this range for some time. It's still trading in this range. Things haven't really changed much, so bias is neutral for euro pound. But as right now, it hasn't really moved much. So I would look at look to see which direction it wants to break. So if it breaks through the high, then we're looking for 0.6720. If it breaks through the bottom, we could see it come into this support level at 0.8480. At this point, bias is neutral here for euro pound. Euro Swiss franc here, this one has This one has been trading in this very, very tight range for some time now. So we've seen the rejection of the resistance. We do have a bearish candle close, but again, I would be very mindful of the support level. It hasn't been able to break the support level here. So we do need to see a break here before the continuation to the downside. So bias is still to the downside. We are seeing several rejections here of the high. So looking for a drop. First target is 1.0920, and then below that we are looking at 1.0820. So bias is bearish for Euro Swiss franc. Just be mindful of the support. So we do need to see the price clear the support before continuation. Pound Swiss franc here, similar story here as well. Price has been trading in this very tight range for some time. Again, it's slowly making lower highs. So it is slowly coming to the downside. Bias is still to the downside here. Next target is 1.2680. So that's the first target. And only if it gets through this one would I look for the lower target. So first price needs to break down here. Only then it will go to the next one. So bias is bearish. First target is 1.2680, this one, and only if it goes through, then we're looking at 1.2550. So for now, bearish bias for pound Swiss franc. Dollar Swiss franc, this one is kind of stuck in this range here for several weeks now. So I'm looking for price to go higher at this point. It is into resistance, so just be mindful of that. But bias is bullish for dollar Swiss franc, and next target is 1.0027. And then if it goes above that, only if it goes through this level would I look for the next one. Same thing here for the bullish move to continue. We need to see a break and then a pullback and a continuation into the next level. So bias is bullish. And then next target here is 1.0095. So bullish bias for dollar Swiss franc. Pound yen, this one very similar to pound Swiss franc here. It's been making lower highs, but it's still stuck. So right now we do have a bearish pin bar here for the weekly candle close. I love trading pin bars. So bias is bearish. Just be mindful of this 138.80 level. If it doesn't get through, it can turn around and go back into the range. So just be careful with that one. But bias is bearish. So I'm looking for a drop, a pullback, and then a continuation to the downside. So bias is bearish. And in terms of our targets, first target is 138.80, then 137.50, and then it can go lower into 135.50, but that's quite a ways away. So once this level gets broken, it opens up this whole move here to the downside, but right now it's just stuck sideways. And because it's trading in a range here, this one could break to the upside. So this could also do one of these, which is our bullish flag. So we just have to be careful with pound yen and see how it moves. This is again 138.80 is the level that I would watch, because this could still give us a move higher. So just be mindful of that. But for now, I'm looking for 138.80 as the first target. And if it gets through that, 137.50. So bearish bias for pound yen. Euro yen here, this is very similar here as well. It is into support right where the price is. Okay, so right now, as we can see, price has rejected the high several times here, which is our previous support resistance level. We do have a bearish candle close, but this is our support right here. It hasn't broken through the support yet. So this is where we just have to be cautious. Bias is to the downside. So we need to see a break through the support, a pullback, and then a continuation here. So once price breaks this support level at 120, then it opens up this move here. So this was the move up when the whole Brexit situation was going on. And now once the price breaks through the support, we could see a continuation. Otherwise, this too could develop into a bullish flag, and we could see a continuation higher. So if it doesn't break through 120, we could see it go higher. So that's why we just have to be careful. But for now, bias is bearish. First target is 119, and then second one is 117.20, which is way down here. And if you take a look at this one here as well, price has been trading in a range for some time now. But now that we are seeing a rejection of the high, I am looking for price to drop. But again, it has to go through the support level for it to continue lower. So bias is bearish for now for euro yen. Pound yen here, sorry, dollar yen here, this one has been moving up. We do have this upwards trending line here. US dollar has been strongly recently. So bias for now is bullish here. In terms of targets, the first target is 109.80. Now this is an important target where price has reacted to this level several times. So just watch out for that. Next target is 110.80. So bias is bullish here for dollar yen at this point. Okay, so bullish bias here. First target 109.80, second target 110.80. Sorry, also just keep in mind where it is currently, that's also a strong support resistance level. So if it doesn't break this level, it could come down. So we need to see a hold above the current level for it to continue further. Aussie yen here, this one is showing a rejection here. It hasn't quite made it to that high. It's reacting right here. So at this point, bias is bearish. First target is 74, and then below that we are looking at 73.00. So bearish bias at the moment, but again, it's into support here as well. So if it doesn't break 74.50, the caution here is that it could go higher. So this is where we need to see a break through the support here for it to continue lower. So this is the caution that if it doesn't break, look for it to go further up. But for now, I'm looking for a drop in Aussie yen as well. New Zealand yen, this one has actually dropped. It did test this resistance 3 times here. So now we do see a move lower. So this is another bearish pin bar, which I really like. So bias is to the downside, but as you can notice here, price is still into support. So if it doesn't go through, just like this one, we had a nice bearish pin bar, but price went up to test the high once again. If it doesn't break through here, it can go higher just like the previous time. So be careful with that one. It could go and do this. So what we need to see here is a break through the support and then a continuation. So until it does that, this one we just have to be careful with as well. First target here is 67.80, and then we're looking at 67.00. So bias is bearish here for New Zealand yen as well. CAD yen, this one has rejected this previous level here. We do have a bearish candle here. So with this one, I'm looking for price to drop towards 81.80. And then below that, we're looking at 81. So bias is bearish for CAD yen as well. All right, so let's move on to our commodities here. Quite a move here in silver to the downside. Big drop here. So bias is bearish, but since we have had such a big drop, look for pullbacks. So 17.20 is a good level to look for a potential pullback before it continues lower. But do look for changes as well. So silver and gold are basically, they have the opposite relationship with our equity market. So if equities start to drop, gold and silver could go back up. And again, Japanese yen is also a safe haven asset. So the safe haven assets could start going back up if our equity markets start to drop. So keep an eye on that. We will get to the equity markets in just a second. But here for now, bias is bearish. I will look for a pullback and then a continuation. Because it's such a big drop, watch out for that pullback. and then we could get a drop from there. So the first target here is 16.60, which is right into the support level here. And then we are looking at 16.20. So bias is bearish for silver. Gold here, big, huge drop in gold as well. Now we have seen it go through the support level. It is into support. This is where price turned around previously. So just keep an eye on that level. In terms of the pullback, I would look at 1475 level here as a potential pullback level, and then a drop here. So bias is bearish. Target is 1436 for gold. Oil here, oil has been going up. It's into resistance though. So watch out, because we had price into resistance here and then it dropped. So it could do that. If it doesn't break the high at 57.80, it could come back down. But for now, bias is bullish with caution. Next target is 59. And then above that, we're looking at 60. So just be careful though, because it's into resistance, and if it doesn't make it through, it can come back down towards 55. So just be cautious, but bullish for now. Copper here, copper has rejected our resistance here. Now it's dropped, but it's not completely bearish yet. So bias is neutral here. For it to continue lower, we need to see a breakthrough 2.60. But right now, I think this one could become range bound. So keep an eye on that. Neutral bias here for copper. Bitcoin here, I think the current price on Bitcoin is around 9,000. I looked at it this morning. So what I'm looking for here is, as long as it stays above the current level here, we are likely to see price go back towards the top of this range, 95.50, and then potentially higher. And Bitcoin has also been acting as a safe haven asset. So if the equity markets start to drop, we could see Bitcoin go back up. So 99.20 is the target. So first 95.50 and then 99.20. Those are the two targets I would look at for Bitcoin. So right now, looks like price has rejected this level. So we're looking for a move back into the range. S&P 500, equity markets, like I said, have been very, very strong. There's a lot of optimism around the US and China trade deal. And as a result of that, we see that price has just been going higher and higher. We are at all-time highs. Now, the problem with such moves is that when we see all this momentum, when the event actually happens after that, so buy the rumor, sell the news, when the news actually comes out, we could see a dip in the market. So these type of high momentum moves here can get turned around. So just keep an eye on the equity markets as you go. For now, it is looking bullish. 3,100 is the next target for S&P 500, 3,120 above that. So bullish bias for S&P 500 here. Nasdaq here, same thing. We have seen price go through the highs, and now it's continuing on. So 8,300 is the next target, and then 8,350 above that for Nasdaq here. So watch out for that. Bias is bullish for Nasdaq as well. Dow Jones, this one is also, it's holding above the previous highs. Bias is bullish here. And our next target here is 27,800, and then looking at 28,000. So bullish bias here for Dow Jones as well. DAX here looking quite bullish. It's broken through this previous high here, so bias is bullish. Next target is 13,400. So bullish bias for DAX as well. FTSE here, this one is right into our resistance, so I would be careful with this one. Bias is bullish though still, and if it goes through the high, we're looking at first one would be 7,500, and then we're looking, actually no, so sorry, 7,460 and then 7,500. So that's for FTSE, still looking bullish, but just be careful with this one because of the resistance. Last but not least, we have Nikkei. This is looking bullish as well. Next target here is 23,850, and then we are into some high levels here, 24,000. So bias is bullish for Nikkei as well. Someone asked the question, will there be a watch list available? Yes, there will be a watch list available. And if you want to get the watch list, so all the levels that we talked about today, you can go to tradingwithvenus.com/forecast. And once you put your name and email address, you will get the you'll get an email with the watch list with all the profit targets that we talked about in our call today. So that's it for today. You guys have a wonderful trading week, and I'll see you again next weekend. Bye for now.